ignore what is happening, and you don't learn from the lessons of the past, you will suffer. Well, we didn't want to put any of our own, certainly in terms of the thematic material, we didn't want to put any of our own baggage. I mean, we had no interest in putting our messages into this movie, but we thought that we should honor Tolkien by putting his messages into it.
Tyrannous reformation of the earth, our place. That is really why he hated machines. Of course, it's perfectly true. He hated the internal combustion engine for perfectly good practical reasons. I mean, noise, congestion, destruction of cities, and many people greatly agree with him now. Into a secondary world that may not be very much more pleasant, but it's in any rate very different. And there are terrors as well as beauties in the secondary world. And why should what he offered, if it is escape, not be the escape of the prisoner, which in other contexts is regarded as a very noble thing to try to do, to get away?
There is no such thing as a natural death. Nothing that happens to man is ever natural, since his presence calls the whole world into question. All men must die, but for every man his death is an accident, and even if he knows it and consents to it, an unjustifiable violation.
The road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, and I must follow if I can, pursuing it with eager feet until it joins some larger way, where many paths and errands meet, and whether then I cannot say.
Hey, good morning, everyone. On this Saturday, there you go. Salty appreciates the ASMR from you there, Nate.
Sultry, dulcet tones of my voice.
I will say, I mean, it's a good, compares pretty well with the the other stuff we got in the intro there. I think you're doing pretty good. You have a future in voice acting. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
but hey, we're here. Dane's ASMR has a future on OnlyFans. I think is actually more of the direction that he would be going.
There's a pass on OnlyFans too. I said too much.
Oh man, you have to post your channel in the chat, I guess, if you're trying to promote. So there's only 3 of us today. Due to a last minute schedule thing, our good friend Alex is unable to make it today.
I thought I got drunker than him last night. Like, is he really pulling the hangover or what?
I didn't interrogate it too much because a gentleman doesn't ask and a lady doesn't tell or something like that. Is that the so
audience can decide which is which.
The 3 Musketeers, as it were, and we're here to finish this book out, right? Like we were talking in the before we went live, that like this right here, this little bit is all we're covering today. Dane, you said it was what, like 80 pages?
It depends on the edition, but yeah, it is one of the shorter ones. But it is it's pretty action packed. I think some of the things that maybe makes it more condensed is precisely what makes it exciting and gripping. So I think the pacing really goes up in this section. So
yeah, I think that's true. So we started out with chapter 6 here, but before you get too far in, I guess let's see. We got Gadfly Fiction is hanging out, lurking in the chat. We got Jacob Ironsides, LPK, Salty drops by. Anybody else who shows up, we appreciate you guys swinging by. But we're here to talk about the books, so let's go ahead and get into it. Chapter 6,
real
The
quick.
Forbidden Pool.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Hold on.
What do you got?
I just got to do this because,
Oh,
it's an international. So this is a Canadian style pipe. So there you go, Dane.
Thanks.
But on here is a marking for Peterson. This is from 1968. So my grandfather used to smoke this pipe. And as usual, I've got a tin of capstan. Now look at how sexy this is when you open it. Gold foldings. I mean, this is class that only Tolkien can command.
So what are we on now? We do book porn on this channel. Is this pipe porn? Are we allowed to say pipe porn? Is that going to get us demonetized?
Yeah, well, that's from my my YouTube pipe community days right there.
There you go. Nathan agrees, or Jacob agrees. You got a nice pipe,
ladies.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, better stop laying pipe on this channel, dude. That's all I'm saying.
I do appreciate it. I wish that my little studio here was maybe in an environment that I could smoke a pipe in. I do have a couple of them. I have a nice meerschaum that I took when I deployed overseas. It's a carved. It's like one of those sort of mirror boxes. Nice.
Is that a granola bar?
No,
that's the flake. Yeah. So the meerschaum that I have is carved in the shape of a pirate with a tricorn hat, and
nice.
He has a pipe in his mouth that is also carved in the shape of a sort of pirate. So, I mean, I can't definitively prove how many levels of detail they went down, but I like to think that it's an infinity pipe.
It's like a Pink Floyd cover.
Yeah. Then I have a couple nice burl pipes, but nothing with quite the lineage that you got there. That's pretty nice.
Yeah, this one's a special one. I don't smoke it a whole lot, but it's precious.
Well, you have to have enough pipes to have in a rotation, right? Because you don't want to smoke the same pipe, even realistically, like every day you need to switch. But
Are we going to have this pipe conversation when we get to the pipe in the book?
Okay, fine. Dane is over here. Like, I was with you when you said the pipe was Canadian, but now it's getting a little bit much, and no one has mentioned Dutch. So what are we even doing here?
We're just going to have this conversation again because it'll be relevant to the plot later, right?
Okay.
You guys know what I'm talking about.
So the forbidden pool, right? Let's see the quick and dirty here. So Faramir shows Frodo that they have found Gollum at the Forbidden Pool. Frodo saves him, basically by tricking him, right? And
totally allowed.
Yeah, and it ends with basically Faramir letting them go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And putting the sort of doom, his pronounced doom on Gollum essentially is kind of what he does, but then lets them go ultimately, right?
Yeah, there was no. This varies pretty heavily from the books. There is no beating the crap out of Gollum.
Mm-hmm.
Frodo's a little bit deceptive, but he's also a little bit more forthright with Faramir in the conversation. There's just quite a bit difference, and it ends the way they should have never taken the hobbits to Osgiliath in the movie. That part of it really irritates me to no end. but so it's really nice to always return to this, and just kind of read how it passes. And you get to see that little playful side of Smeagol with the fish and stuff like that. I mean, there's some slight little tinges of innocence left over that are very few and far between with him.
Well, in the movie, I think this sort of cemented it, but here we see like this is almost like the initial turn, right? Where this becomes the justification really for Gollum's kind of behavior, right? We see when Gollum gets when he gets captured, right? Mm-hmm. He sees the green light in Smeagol's eyes, and Smeagol goes to reach him. He has the "we must trust master," right? He sort of, but he's got doubt in his voice there, and then the betrayal. He calls him wicked, tricksy, false. He tries to reach out with his white snapping fingers, right? But to me, this reads like this is the impetus for Gollum's later behavior.
Well, I think the movie did a better job of establishing that. That it was really Gollum Smeagol had kind of already banished the Gollum side of his psyche. Mm-hmm. And then this is the incident that brings him back. The movie really dramatized that part up.
Yeah.
But it also seems that the movie, that's where he hatches the scheme to let Shelob basically lead them into Shelob. Shelob doesn't give a shit about the ring, and that's how Gollum's going to get it back. Whereas, I don't know, am I right in reading that was Gollum's whole plan from the beginning?
Yeah. At least from the Black Gate.
Yeah.
So I think that there's two ways that you can read it. I feel like the movie made it seem like Gollum. The movie chose one plan or one way to read it, and I think that you guys are maybe choosing the other way to read it, which would be that Gollum's plan was to sort of do that the entire time, and this just sort of cemented it for him, maybe. Whereas the movie made it look like he, was good. Smeagol had banished Gollum, and then this sort of brought it back. And then he, after this, has the conversation with himself. Kind of, he runs on ahead, and he has that conversation with himself. Maybe she can take care of them, right? I kind of think that initially Gollum was warring with the decision. I don't think that it was always his plan to betray Frodo. I think that there's a couple moments that like cement it for him, and I think this is the sort of inflection point where it moves from there's a conflict, maybe he does the right thing by them, maybe not, to like, nope, at this point Gollum has taken over. And maybe it's a distinction without a difference, I guess, as I'm talking through it.
Could be. Yeah, I mean, I know that they transplanted a lot of the quiet discussions that Gollum was having earlier in the book. They transplanted that to after the Osgiliath release. And so, I mean, that's the, those movements of conversation that Gollum is having with himself, like in the movie where he's by the lake, and then Sam smacks him with a frying pan after he hears him, that, those types of things were shifted. The conversation piece anyway was shifted because we had already had that earlier before. I think it might have been in the marshes, if I'm remembering correctly. But it gets moved in the movie to after Osgiliath to help cement the plan. So like in the movie, it's a lot like what Dane was saying. It's a lot more pronounced a turn in the movie.
Yeah. So Matt is kind of saying he doesn't think the Osgiliath thing was quite as bad as you made it out to be. I tend to agree with you personally. I think that the Osgiliath thing. So maybe I'll concede his point. Minor infraction compared to other stuff. I will agree with that. My issue with the Osgiliath thing is the amount of time that is devoted to it and where that time could and should have been spent, right? So, for example, instead of the Osgiliath scene, we could have had the sort of, the destruction of the Shire, right? So I think that, there's a fair amount of time that happens between the Forbidden Pool and then going into Osgiliath and then the release from Osgiliath and the Ring Wraith shows up and the orcs cross the river and all that kind of stuff, right? That uses actually, like, I think a surprising amount of time. I think it's probably a good 10 plus minutes of the movie is basically devoted to that process and those scenes. And it tells us a lot more about Faramir than it does about the main characters. I think, Trip over here is right that they did want to expand on Faramir's character. I'm not sure that they should have expanded on Faramir's character to that extent, and at the expense of things that I think are more important. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think the expansion on Faramir was worth it? Maybe.
No. It ruined. It didn't ruin it because they recovered it slightly, but you took away this, like, almost a picture of the one guy outside of the Fellowship that seemed to be impervious to it, or not necessarily impervious, but that his honor code was greater than the seduction of the ring. And by the way, that was Trip, Niende Shadar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she changed her name to try and be sneaky, but we know
she's
who she is.
She's rebranding.
She's rebranding.
It's new Trip, just like new Coke, but no. Yeah, she's gonna complain about that. Okay, I feel like the thing that we should maybe focus on with this chapter is the conversation between Faramir and Smeagol, or Gollum, right? There's some really good stuff there where Faramir draws out that the path he's taking is Cirith Ungol, right? Or Cirith Ungol. There's the conversation about, so this line here I think is pretty decent. So after Faramir sends Gollum away, right? And is talking just with Frodo and Sam, he's describing that, if Cirith Ungol is named, old men and masters of lore will blanch and fall silent. The valley of Minas Morgul passed into evil very long ago, and it was a menace and dread while the banished enemy dwelt yet far away, and Ithilien was still for the most part in our keeping. As you know, the city was once a strong place, proud and fair, Minas Ithil, the twin sister to our city. And he goes on and just describes the decay of Gondor, the sort of fall of the Númenórean men in the West, and their, which I guess Númenórean men in the West is sort of like saying ATM machine, I suppose. But he starts talking about it, and then he talks about how Minas Ithil became Minas Morgul, how it was filled with an evil, a shapeless watcher, a fear that lived within the ruined walls. The 9 riders are based there, so it sort of reveals that, like, this is the stronghold of the Lord of the Nine, and goes through and kind of talks a lot about it. I thought that was all really good stuff happening there, and I wish that instead of seeing Faramir, the sort of warrior in Osgiliath, I wish that we had seen Faramir, the counselor, sort of in the Forbidden Pool. So in my mind, if they wanted to build up Faramir's character, they built him up more as a soldier in the Osgiliath scene, and then again, his attempt to recapture Osgiliath. Not a great soldier, apparently, but they build him up more towards the flavor of his brother Boromir, when in the book, it's so clear that he is a scholar and a poet, and he is a unlikely or I don't know, he's resistant to the idea of being a soldier, and they gut that in favor of him, fighting stuff in Osgiliath. Nate, you're on mute.
Sorry. You were briefly talking there about the little discussion he's going off back and forth with Gollum, and it was the same thing of his conversation earlier with Frodo and Sam, and you have it here with Gollum. He is a master interrogator of getting information out without directly going for the information necessarily. So he's very intelligent. So he's very scholarly, as you were saying. And he's more or less the guy that you want behind the battle, directing things, and seeing where things are, basically predicting where things are going, rather than like you said, leading men in a direct charge against a fortified area. And then the lore drop you mentioned, it's absolutely beautiful.
I don't think I'm going to be able to watch the that scene in the movie again, thanks to this comment here about it. The charge to Osgiliath being the episode 8 horse.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, but they had more horses in Lord of the Rings.
They did, and it also wasn't charging the back of their own wall. So like it is dumber. It is clearly dumber. But now I don't think I'm going to be able to watch that scene without thinking of episode 8. So you know what? I don't know if I can. Can I kick her out of the stream? There's got to be punishment for this.
No.
I love that. At least they weren't charging the back of their own wall. What a great line.
Oh man, this is okay. Anyway, that's the stuff that I really liked. I liked that they brought up again the conversation. So Frodo asks where else he should go, right? And he has this, amazing line that I love, and I wish that this had been in the movies, because I think that it deserved to be in the conversation with Faramir, especially as they played up Faramir's temptation versus Faramir never being tempted by the ring and like not wanting it, right? The line about, would you have me come to Gondor with this thing, the thing that drove your brother mad with desire? What spell would it work in Minas Tirith? Shall there be 2 cities of Minas Morgul, grinning at each other across a dead land filled with rottenness? Like that is such a great, like, again, we've talked before about Tolkien's like just unique ability to form sentences into just like, it's not poetry, but it's like prose that's almost poetry. Like it's like it it's so good. And then it comes right back to something that I think is a good reminder. So Faramir says, I would not have it so. Then Frodo replies, then what would you have me do? I know not. Only I would not have you go to death or to torment. And I do not think that Mithrandir would have chose this way. So the tie back to the common refrain of like, Gandalf's loss as a loss to the ring bearer specifically in the Fellowship. And again,
it's interesting that you brought up Faramir's role in this book. Seems to be much more of a counselor than as a warrior. So he's kind of being a substitute Gandalf at this point, right?
Which I think reinforces the point that I made before, if you remember, about how I think book 3 and book 4 should be in reverse order.
You can read it again. Now, so anyway, the Faramir changes with the book, with the movie. I get why they did it. They needed to kind of give him an arc. They needed to dramatize the temptation of the ring. You can't basically have 9 hours of a movie. Every single time the ring is shown, there's a close up of it, and it seems to be working on everybody around him, and just kind of, maybe it's the same reason why they cut Tom Bombadil out of it, right? They didn't want to show anybody impervious to the ring. It frightened everybody. It tempted everybody. So,
what do you guys think of this? Because so I think I disagree with Matt's statement here, because he's saying that the ring not wanting to go to Gondor is why Faramir was not affected by it, right? But I mean, Faramir didn't want it to go to Gondor. I don't know. I'm not sure that I think that we talked a lot last episode about why Faramir's character is why the ring was not immediately effective on him. Just like Frodo and Sam, like none of the hobbits were immediately like, they see the ring and they just lust after it and want it. I think Faramir would have been affected if he had been around it for a long time, but
yeah, there's, I think one of the things that it is important to have in storytelling, and this is, like what Dane was saying, like they wanted to give Faramir an arc, and yeah, I get that, but you don't have to have every character have an arc in your film productions.
Yeah.
And this is the grave mistake I think Hollywood makes, is they want to have everybody to have this grand storyline, and Faramir.
Maybe old Hollywood. New Hollywood, I'm not sure they want any character to have a great story.
Well,
New Hollywood uses ChatGPT.
Yeah, it's like I gave you the finish. What else do you want?
Right. But so it was important, I think, for Tolkien to put Faramir in here as a beacon of the goodness that does reside in some men, rather than the susceptibility that exists in all men. Aragorn's another example of this in the books. He's not susceptible to the ring's power, and he is that hero archetype that is already set in place from the beginning to ride through the entire storyline. And I think Faramir is another brief glimpse of that replaces Aragorn in Frodo and Sam's journey, if just for a brief moment.
Yeah. Hey, Sven, thanks for showing up. Hope you are enjoying the read if you're going along with us. Do we have more to say about the hidden pool, or?
No, I think we can move on.
Okay.
It is, you get the hint essentially that Cirith Ungol, there's going to be some evil up there. Good foreshadowing for I guess what comes, and at the end of the day, it's like, well, I got nowhere else to go, so it's where we have to go,
and we're gonna get Cirith Ungol, and it is a wild ride. It's so good. Journey to the Crossroads, I think, is the shortest chapter in this short section. It's like 10 pages, less maybe. 303 to 9 pages in my version. Not a whole lot happens. They're traveling up to Morgul Vale. There's the realization of the darkness around Mordor, right? The sky being dark. You don't see the sun, like all of that kind of stuff, right? You see a little bit of Gollum's kind of mounting suspicious behavior, and Sam, being suspicious of Gollum, right? I feel like the moment of import is like really the very last line about the head of the statue with the a ray of sunlight that sort of hit across it, where there was some plants trailing over the head of the statue, right? So the idea that they cannot conquer forever. So what do you guys think? I mean, like a little respite, a little bit of mounting kind of suspicion and dread, but a glimpse of maybe a foreshadowing for kind of ultimate victory here, or is there something else you think is more complex happening?
Kind of exists as a deep breath before the plunge, to steal a line from Gandalf in the movies.
I
You
like
know,
that.
you're right. It is a bit of a respite. You get a lot there. I seem to recall there being quite a few lines that they pulled into the movies from this chapter for some reason. And I was reading
I
my larger book, so I'm misplacing them here in the smaller one. But
yeah.
uh,
One of the things that they talked about was water, I think. So they're
yes,
saying like, hey, we need to drink a little water, and they have the conversation about, you know, you cannot drink any water that flows out of Morgul Vale, right? And in the book here, they talks about like, yeah, well, you know, flows into Morgul Vale versus flows out of Morgul Vale. I think that's in this chapter. Am I crazy here?
I don't think you're fully crazy.
Hmm. Maybe that's not.
I think that's why his wife's not on the stream, so that she could confirm that.
I'll say what I liked about this is the blindfolds came back again.
Yeah,
they're gonna blindfold Gollum, and you're just like, oh, this is just like those elves and Gimli and Frodo. Following like good leadership or example is like, all right, I'm going to do what Aragorn did and said, no, you're just going to blindfold us all.
I did like that as well.
And smartly being like, if you blindfold us first, then Gollum will see that like he'll be more trusting about it. So
yeah. Yep.
Also,
that is a very good point to bring up as well. And I also like that reading through it, the connection back to Aragorn.
Yeah, it's a learned wisdom.
Yeah.
And, you know, Frodo's definitely grown. It's like the line you mentioned from the last chapter is like, shall there be two Minas Morgul's? Yeah. You know, it's just like all of a sudden you're seeing Frodo here shown as this wise thing. And I think actually it was it in the previous chapter where Frodo's kind of glimpsed, or is it the next chapter where he's kind of glimpsed by Sam as this elvish type of kind of power? I think it's in the next chapter, isn't it?
I thought that might have already,
where he's kind of standing over Gollum and kind of showing forth his authority.
Frodo's just a good guy, but
yeah.
No, what I will say, this is actually, I think it was in the appendices of the movie too. So this scene at the end of the crossroads with the statue and then all in flower, I think they actually put a lot of detail into it. It wasn't necessarily showing up in the script, so I don't know if they added that. Did they add the line about it?
I don't think they had the line. I could be wrong. I mean, we're going to watch this movie here, you know, sometime in the near future. So I guess we'll find out. But
they cannot conquer forever wasn't in the movie, but the line of look, the king has got a crown again. That was actually Sam's line in the movie. It's Frodo's here in the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it does speak to that larger hope that exists beyond the current and impending gloom. You know, and it's very much speaking to kind of a return aspect of, you know, of holiness and better days.
Yes, for sure. So after having taken our respite here and our deep breath before the plunge, getting into the stairs of Cirith Ungol, and I mean now, Dane, you said it's kind of a rising pace here, right? It's almost like a sprint of just straight action coming for the next 3 chapters, right?
A lot of these like after you get kind of the expository dialogue between Faramir and Frodo talking about the location that they're going to go. I mean, these chapters, it's basically beat after beat after beat, with not a whole lot of navel gazing and not a whole bunch of lore, I guess, until in the Shelob chapter. But
I was going to say the Shelob chapter is masterful at a way to do lore without detracting, without it seeming like an exposition dump, right? Like you could, like never read the Silmarillion and just read that section of Shelob's Lair, and you'll have some ideas about the history of the world, right? I mean, it's pretty good stuff. But we're here at Stairs of Cirith Ungol, chapter 8, which, let's see. So it starts with them basically saying, "Hey, we can't stand here in the crossroads. We got to go." So Gollum is kind of, "Hey, keep up, hobbits." All this stuff. I think they said that tons of times in the movie, right? Frodo gets sort of pulled on by Minas Morgul, right? And Gollum actually drags him away and off to the side, right? And as soon as he kind of gets dragged to the side, then we have the gates open, right? We have the white sort of green white light or something like that, and the gates open and kind of pull on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the great rumbling noise, louder than ever before, rolled through the grounds. Then with shearing suddenness came a great red flash. So there's the flash in the sky. Minas Morgul answered, and then the gates of the city opened like an open mouth with gleaming teeth gaping wide, and out of the gate an army came. So this I think they did reasonably well, I think, from in the movie, right? Like we see the lights, we see Frodo being sort of drugged towards it, and like he gets drugged out of the line of sight, and bam, the doors open, and the army starts, ramping across, right? And it's going to end. This chapter is going to end with them basically going up the stairs, but not yet finding the tunnel. So the rest of the chapter is them going up the stairs, Gollum disappearing in the night while they're napping, and Sam calling him a sneak. So.
Yeah. But you got key part in this whole thing that I picked up on this reread is finally you kind of get the file of Galadriel, and you understand kind of it has a critical function of letting Frodo snap out of it, so to speak. Because in this whole section, when you got the army marching by and the Witch King or whatever is getting close, and Frodo's tempted, like he's getting overpowered by the ring, and then cold and hard it seemed in his grip, and he closed on it, the file of Galadriel, so long treasured and almost forgotten till that hour. As he touched it, for a while all thought of the ring was banished from his mind. He sighed and bent his head.
Yeah.
That's why he got that gift. Because it seemed kind of not that cool. Like everybody else got like cool weapons and cloaks. Sam got some earth for later. And Frodo has this thing that he hasn't used yet. What's it going to do? Oh, ring defense. Nice. Good thinking.
It's about to do more than that.
Yeah, but it's not just a nightlight. I do like how that ends up kind of coming into play without his knowledge, his ability to use anything. It's just there as a it's almost like it's a spiritual beacon. So when Galadriel says, "Let it be a light for you in dark places," it's not just literal darkness. It's spiritual darkness. When he's sitting there in the grips of everything, this little bit brings him back.
It was very nice. Although I don't think they dramatized this part of the film the same way. I think it's, but the reason would probably be to like do the reveal in the Shelob fight with the file instead.
Yeah, so. I think it's tough to communicate that in this kind of moment, and so they just had Sam and Gollum pull him back. Rather, here in the book, Gollum kind of skits off.
Yeah. Oh, semi disappointing because put another way, if all it really does is help Sam defeat Shelob, then it is a nightlight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas here it seems like, okay, it's a talisman of comparable power to the ring. Well, not necessarily comparable, but it's able to nullify the evil of the ring. So it's a good talisman along with a bad talisman.
So that concept makes it sort of interesting, right? Do you think that the file of Galadriel, do you think it's been, does he get a passive bonus? Does he have a passive buff of like, -1 against evil enchantment effects or something like that? Like, is he,
depends if he drinks the potion. I don't know.
It's, is it like -1 against evil enchantments passively, and then like when it's equipped -5 or something like that? Like,
maybe it's only like a use once a day item. I don't know. We'll have to check the rule.
There you go. That's
Ozzy could probably tell us if he has the old Lord of the Rings.
That's actually an interesting point. Yeah, it's a use once a day, and the moral of the story is Galadriel forgot to like give him the user's manual, and so he hasn't been using it this whole time, which means he's in like a way worse spot than he needs to be. Use once per day to like undo, half a day's evil enchantment.
Yeah, it's like a restoration potion. Gets rid of his wisdom damage drain. I don't know.
Yeah. I think the conversation in the chat between Matt and Trip here is good. I think that, Galadriel sees possible futures. So I think she gave him an item that she knew that he might need in a variety of different ways, but probably didn't know the specific way that needed to be, right? So, pretty interesting stuff there. I think we'll talk about it more in the next chapter for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just like with the Mirror Galadriel chapter, the wisest cannot tell.
Yeah.
It's like, even if you have the gift of foresight, well, you're just a created being. You're not, you are not all knowing.
Yeah. Well, and, even sort of in Tolkien's day, it was still, largely hypothesized. I don't think that at the time they were aware of sort of the Heisenberg principle, but the idea that if you know something about the future, that in and of itself would change the future, I think is something that is also goes into that idea of Galadriel's mirror, that like, the mirror can't possibly tell you your own fate with perfect clarity, or the fate of things that are closely tied to you, because your knowledge changes the system. So it's definitely interesting stuff there, and how much she knew or didn't know. I think Dane's point is probably correct, though, that she gave him an item that she knew would have some ability to lessen the burden of the ring, right?
Which we don't get in the film, really. But I think we might have talked about it a little bit earlier. Matt was saying in the chat that Osgiliath wasn't one of the most egregious parts of the film. Upon reading this, I'm actually beginning to think that the melodrama of sending Sam down the stairs.
I was thinking the same thing.
That's stupid.
I was thinking the same thing.
And for what? Like Gollum sprinkles some breadcrumbs and throws away some of the lembas bread.
Yeah.
Is that really needed?
No, I don't think that was needed. The only thing that I can think of was that it created a different dynamic maybe between Sam and Frodo that they wanted to highlight. I don't know. I can't really think of a reason to do it other than maybe that they just only wanted to have Frodo in Shelob's lair and having, sort of the extra.
Well, it gives Sam the hero moment, right? In the film where you think, oh, Frodo's a total goner, Shelob's triumphant, and then you pan back, and then there's Sam with, powered up.
But that's in the book too. Like Sam's hero moment was better in the book. All right, we're talking about stuff that's in chapter 9 now. Anyway. We might as well get into it.
Well, but part of the reason why I don't like that part in the film where they send them away. Well, there's some great parts in here, which I think they still kept, but they did earlier, right? Right at the end of the film, the Two Towers, they're walking through the woods and talking about being in stories. So that's here on the stairs.
It is, yeah.
But that's a touching thing, it's self-referential too. But
I did like that they included the what about Samwise the Brave? I want to hear more about Sam. And I was
now, Mr. Frodo, you shouldn't make fun. Yeah. I was serious.
Yeah, so it is a great line. I do like it. The weird thing, right, is that so you pointed out that they did that on the stair, right? In the movie as well, right?
No, they have this discussion on the way to Minas Morgul. It's at the end of the second movie, so before, because this is part of the problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So
where we're here on Cirith Ungol, we're effectively in the Return of the King film now.
Yep. Man, that makes me dislike the thing with Sam even more, I think, because they kept that dialogue. Sure, it's in a different movie, I suppose, but it's still that's their relationship. And then they climb some stairs, and now Frodo's get the hell out of here. I don't trust you.
But it's also Gollum showing his guile and being more manipulative, right? So that's what the film, I think, does a decent job in doing, is basically Gollum is more than just the sneaky guide and the opportunist. He's using empathy essentially with Frodo, being I know what it was like to wield the ring. Sam doesn't know. Sam doesn't know what it's doing to you. And you need to be watchful, because the ring might actually be tempting Sam too. He's going to offer to carry it. Watch out for that. So that much was done. But the reason why, as you point out, you still get the Sam hero moment when he confronts Shelob. All that stuff kind of still happens. You don't need to send Sam away on the stairs.
I think you're right to highlight that it was done in service of Gollum's arc, right? So they made Gollum more of an agent. They made Gollum, have more of an arc. They made him more scheming. He employed, more kind of like you said, guile, I guess, but between him and Frodo and Sam, and was being more manipulative. Whereas in the book, he's more just he's just leading them into sort of a trap. But he's not really worrying about what's going on interpersonally, because he's just no, I don't need to mess with your guys' heads. I'm going to get you eaten by the giant spider. So I don't care about you. So I think you're right. The whole Sam leaving thing is part of the Gollum arc. And I guess I don't like that. I don't like, messing with Sam and Frodo's relationship to benefit the Gollum arc. Just like my comments about the Faramir kind of arc, Okay, do we want to get into Shelob's lair?
Yeah, is Nathan back yet? Or there he is.
You just got back. Good timing. Sorry about that, guys.
No worries. On to Shelob's lair. So the key thing too, we all know it's a giant spider, but your first time reading this, you don't even know what this is.
Yes.
That's pretty cool and freaky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also like the smell being one of the key things that is kind of put to the reader. I think that it has the benefit of driving home the idea that they're moving in the dark, right? So when everything is described in terms of sense and feel and sound, so they talk about things brushing against the tops of their heads, which we know are webs. They don't know what they are because they can't see, right? where they talk about the smell, they talk about the sound of Shelob when she starts to sort of awaken herself and kind of spring the trap. We don't get a lot of visual things, and in fact the vision is restricted intentionally, where like they come to the blockage in the passage and don't know what it is. It's only later when there's light that that we actually find out like what that blocked passage is, right?
Cobwebs.
Yeah. So that one, yes, but I was also thinking the stone, the one that's blocked by stone. So the first block when Shelob first kind of confronts them, right? So Gollum deserts them. They're going on alone, and Shelob kind of we get the first look at Shelob, right?
So they get all darkened up. Then they take out the nightlight. We do get plenty of lore dumping. Well, not necessarily that about the file of Galadriel.
Mm-hmm. The stuff that I liked, I mean, the connection with the file of Galadriel, great, but like the stuff about Shelob and Shelob's like interaction with Galadriel or with the file, right? So, okay, so talks about how came to Morgul Vale, the cry that he uses, the light that sort of comes up, right? He didn't know what he had spoken when he said it, and then it switches almost to her perspective, and it says, but other potencies there are in Middle Earth, powers of night, and they are old and strong. And she that had walked in darkness had heard the elves cry that cry far back in the deeps of time, and she had not heeded it, and it did not daunt her now. So the starting to establish of the fact that like she is super old, and also it kind of establishes the thing that Frodo just said, that the reader doesn't immediately know what that means. Like, was the file speaking through him because she's heard that before? I thought that was awesome. I really liked that, along with some of the other stuff we get again from kind of her perspective.
Yeah, very rare in this book do you see any perspective of the enemy. You get the chapters with Merry and Pippin with the orcs, or the chapter, but this one is a lot more descriptive rather than containing dialogue.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is especially when you sit there and you read this whole section, you get this perspective of this just darkness that it's deep. And then you go and read the Silmarillion, and then you read that section where you're with basically
Melkor?
Lost Gilead's or with Shelob's basically mommy or daddy or whatever, the great beast that even Melkor had feared at one point. And I'm drawing a blank on the name, and I know Matt will just pop it in here. Ungoliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you
Thanks,
go.
Matt.
There you go. Thanks, Trip.
Trip did it?
Yeah, Trip popped it in there a minute ago.
Oh, Matt did too. They both did. There you go.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Trip can claim that you got it first.
But like, so you sit there and you get the picture of Ungoliant, and then you read this again after you get that deeper look, and these are darknesses of the deeps that are undiscovered, and you really don't want to delve into these. And Tolkien just dips his toe in it for the reader, just give you this thing of, okay, this is not even Ungoliant. this is some lesser evil that you're dealing with, and yet it's going to take something pretty doggone remarkable to defeat this. And remarkable meaning something that's about 3'6".
You mean remarkable that like then holding the star aloft and the bright sword advanced, Frodo, Hobbit of the Shire, walked steadily down to meet the eyes.
Yeah.
I love that line. I love that he like called out Galadriel, and then the fact that he's just like bam, sword up, like let's do this, and it's Frodo,
Yes.
Hobbit of the Shire. Like it's just
absolute
it.
Like, who in the hell do you think you are?
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
I like that, the fact that they showed bravery was enough to get Shelob to sort of back up initially, but she's not giving up, right? She backs up, she moves away. You get kind of the first look at more than just the eyes, right? You start to see the huge bulk of the shadow of Shelob, right? More on that later, obviously. And they move on. They're still being pursued. They can still feel the malice kind of following them, right? And they come across the cobwebs, and once again we see Sting is just elven blades are so much better than all the other ones. Like Sam's got like the barrow down sword that's like all fancy, like red Damascus, just like was made to fight the riders, right? To fight the nine, and he's like hits it multiple times and like almost drops his sword and like it barely gets one of them, and then Frodo's like, I don't know, Sting says here in small text plus 20 against everything. I'm just
it's a fucking lightsaber and he just like burns it away. Yeah,
it reminded me of Boromir bending his sword on the troll. Yes, Sting, pretty badass sword. Let's see. I like the lore that we got related to that too, right? So it's talking about the cobwebs, right? And again, in just a very brief line here. So Frodo stepped up, he draws his sword, the blue gleaming blade shore through them, right? A great rent was made, and it says, man, there's a line in here. There, am I going the wrong direction here? There's a line about how, like, where Sting was forged, like they knew about spiders, right? Like they knew about Shelob. There we go. There it is. So it is an elven blade. There were webs of horror in dark ravines of Beleriand where it was forged. But you must be the guard and hold the eye. So Frodo's line basically saying like, Sting has seen this before, just like Shelob has heard that sort of war cry before, right? So, Nate, are you getting text messages again?
No, I'm looking through this. And...
No, I just meant the feedback on the
is there feedback?
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah. No, maybe.
Does one of you guys want to take us forward here as we go through this?
Where are we at? Are we in the 10?
So they've cleared the webs and they're moving on now.
So basically, okay. So now they're on the run.
Yeah.
Well, and Sam gets the file. Frodo gives him the file to hold on to as they move forward. Frodo's getting all sorts of excited because he sees what he thinks is an opening, and as Sam's kind of trailing behind him, Sam decides to make the boneheaded decision because he wants to catch up to put the file in his pocket, and all shit breaks loose.
You can't run with a file in your hand. Everyone knows that.
Right. Yeah. Shiloh makes her move immediately, and as Sam goes to race to Frodo's protection, Sam gets grabbed by Gollum, and they have a little skirmish that surprised Gollum big time. He was not anticipating Sam to react the way that he did, and forces Gollum into a retreat, if I'm remembering rightly.
Yep.
And then at that point, he then turns to go and go after Frodo, because he was actually going to go after Gollum, and then finally it clicked. He's like, no, I'm not here for Gollum. And so he turns around and thunders off after Frodo. And the last line of the chapter, he was too late. So far, Gollum's plot had succeeded.
So first of all, great summation. And then we have to ask Dane, is this information accurate?
No. It already happened.
I don't know. Trip, you're gonna have to come with some receipts. We need the record set straight. He's denying it.
It's not my birthday.
Was it yesterday?
No.
The day before.
Come on, Trip.
But no.
Trip, you can't just throw it up like a week later here. I mean, if it was yesterday, it'd be one thing to say that we should have wished him happy birthday yesterday. But if it's like, oh, it was 6 days ago, come on, Trip, come on. You're gonna have to bring some receipts if you want that on there.
Exactly.
All right. The choices of Master Samwise. I mean, great chapter. I love that he picks up the sword and does his stuff. I am still just a huge fan of the fact that like the magic of the File of Galadriel like comes like channeled through him, and the way it's described is awesome. I don't know, Dane, how do you feel about your I'm assuming this is Quenya? You want to try your hand at the pronunciation
of Quen? Wait, what?
When Sam does his shout with the File of Galadriel.
I don't want to say it out loud. Githonia El Oberth, a mental palindril. What? No, it's just jibbery jupe.
All right.
Goblin goop.
For those of you playing at home, what he says, right? And this is translations given in a letter from Tolkien. So, O Elbereth, star kindler, from heaven gazing afar, to thee I cry now in the shadow of fear and death. Oh, look towards me, ever white. O queen who kindled star on star, white robed from heaven gazing far, here overwhelmed in dread of death I cry, oh, guard me, Elbereth. Is sort of the related sort of thing, which is says that it's a prayer to Elbereth is the second one, and what he says is that first one that I read. Again, like poetry in another language that you invented is pretty hardcore. Like LPK, yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of the point, right? So Tolkien, lifelong Catholic. This was a reference to a prayer. So let's just contemplate that for a second. He invented a language, and then in that language made a prayer in that language, and then had this be also in that invented language, and it's a reference to the prayer. It's a poetic reference to the prayer that he also invented. So it's like that's like at least 3 layers of writers are lazy these days. That's all I'm going to say.
I like this chapter because fundamentally, you think like Sam does that Frodo's dead. So you get all the tragedy of, oh man, like main character, but Sam's only companion, dead and done. And then Sam needs to cope with all the grief and then also realize what his task is. No one is left in the Fellowship. He's in Mordor. He's all alone. He's got the ring now. Yeah. And he's been taking direction his whole life, right? That's who Sam is. Sam is the gardener, and it's Master Frodo. There's the officer Batman relationship, obviously coming through. And what does he have to do? Right. So there's a lot of introspection, sitting down. I think he realizes like he was at the Council of Elrond. Maybe he wasn't invited, but the task was given to him and all the Fellowship. Like if you're the only one left, then you have to take up the burden. And just imagine what that must feel for him. Like the world is now riding on his shoulders. He doesn't have time to bury Master Frodo. He actually needs to get moving and going on. Like something could come back. Like I don't think Shelob's dead. But what's going to happen to Frodo's body? And then at the end of all this, the worst realization gets dropped on him. Mm-hmm. Frodo's not dead. And that's where this book ends. And I thought, gosh, this is just a great chapter, right? Everything that goes through, it's an emotional roller coaster for Sam, who's really kind of taken over main character vibes by this point. And going through all that turmoil and then ending with the realization that no, situation's even worse. And that is Frodo's still alive and he's captured by orcs, and now you got to go get him.
So Matt is correcting me. It's Sindarin, not Quenya. Fair point. I don't claim to be a Tolkien expert, just a fan and a reader. But and I think there's like 4 or 5 different forms of the Elvish language that Tolkien made. So that's little known fact. People think that he invented a language. He invented several languages. Again,
I think 7 if I remember right.
Okay, that's even more than I had thought. So again, writers these days real lazy. They need to up their game. The thing that I liked, so Dane, what you were talking about, how he has to like go through all of the stages of grief, and like he does this on like a conversation like with himself as he's basically looking over Frodo's body. And there's stuff that like just gives you, I feel like it just gives you chills, as you read it, the humanness of the events that are happening, the way it's described. There's this line here that so he's basically trying to decide what to do, and he says, "What, me alone go to the crack of doom and all?" He quailed still, but the resolve grew. What? Me take the ring from him? The council gave it to him. But the answer came at once. And the council gave him companions, so that the errand should not fail. And you are the last of all the company. The errand must not fail. I wish that I wasn't the last, he groaned. I wish old Gandalf were here, or was here, or somebody. Like, man, I can't read that. I've read this, five times, just, kind of going through there. I listen to the audiobook and kind of read these as we're going through them, and just reading it again. Like I get, goosebumps reading these lines. It's so, you know, I'd say Tripp, I think, is right here. The romantic, spiritual aspect to it, the way that he phrases these things, the humanness and sort of, you know, heartfeltness of these situations. I think it's just awesome.
Yeah. Well, and it's phrased just as you would kind of expect in the midst of a war. You have a situation where he has to make a decision and he can't just sit there and be idle. And so he's got to make the hard decisions. He's got to make the choice to move on. It's the only choice that he has. And he has to come to terms with it very quickly and make the move. And so he does. And, you know, and then he gets quickly reverted back in a moment to go back and protect his master's body. But it's, you know, these are not decisions that he has the convenience of time to sit there and meditate on to figure out what's the best path. It's the mission's still there. It's still before me, and I'm the last. So it's got to be done, and he does it. And it is a moment of sheer bravery to settle yourself down to the truth of these events and move forward in the event that what you want to do is not what you have to do. But you've got to pick yourself up. You've got to go forward and do what's necessary. And it's the same decision that's made in an instant when he goes after Frodo and Shelob at the end of the previous chapter, but he doesn't have to think about that decision because the emotion of the decision is actually in saving Frodo. And when he goes, it's funny because it's 2 pages. Shelob's only on the book for 2 more pages when this chapter opens. Sham shears off a one of his legs
Claws.
or whatever, claw, and then just happens to stick a blade up right as Shelob's coming down on him. And the description: no such anguish had Shelob ever known or dreamed of knowing in all her long world of wickedness. Not the doughtiness soldier of old Gondor, nor the most savage orc entrapped, had ever thus endured her, or set blade to her beloved flesh. There's nothing. Again, 3'6", and that's what gets her, and she retreats.
Well,
Sam fought off an elder being of like a bygone age.
Like the description from Shagrat. She's sat on a nail, it seems, and we shan't cry about that.
Right. You know, I mean, well, and it's kind of missed on the orcs about what in the world did this. I mean, they assume it's an elf, but
it's like an elf lord. It's fucking Glorfindel.
Yeah.
Yep. Even they thought Glorfindel should have come along on this thing.
Right. And so they're not, the magnitude of what it takes to sit there and pierce Shelob, they don't know. And all of a sudden they're faced with it and they don't even think about it. They're just like, well, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and you don't hear about Shelob ever again, just that she retreats into her own misery, basically.
Yeah.
Nursing her malice and her misery, and in the slow years of darkness healed herself from within, rebuilding her clustered eyes with hunger like death. She spun once more her dreadful snares in the glens of the mountains of shadow. This tale does not tell.
Yep.
So it's not. She's not completely defeated, but the choice.
We don't know.
And this
it says that it says, I'm not going to say that she did this. It's implied. I like to think that maybe Sam killed her.
I would like to. I don't think so,
right?
because we don't even know in Legendarium, as far as I know, that Ungoliant is necessarily dead.
Yeah.
So these beings live for so long.
Yeah.
Just like Balrogs, get unearthed.
Yeah.
We find the power then of the ring, can be a translator, so you don't need the little devices at the UN. You know, yeah, but this, like I said last time, this is my favorite chapter in the whole book. It is just grips in every angle that you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
And what a way to end the Two Towers. I love this book every time.
So Matt is making kind of the point that I was sort of jokingly making, but given that the description of the light searing into the open wound, right? I think it's possible that she's limping away to die. That might be what happens. And I do think that a reading of the way it's described is basically just saying, like, the book. So the source book that Tolkien was writing the Lord of the Rings from, right? At least that's the sort of meta perspective, right? He has the source book. He's writing this book, as a translation, essentially, right? And he's basically commenting, like, the book doesn't say what happened to Shelob after this. The book doesn't say if she died. It doesn't say if she nursed her wounds back to health and continued to be a terror into the next age. We don't know, but I like to think that what Matt is saying there is nice. So
yeah, so that plus 20 holiness does work.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, so we got to talk about Sam putting on the ring, and what we learn about the orcs and the Nazgul and Lubers, and just some good stuff going on there towards the end of this chapter. Yeah, I think the first one is probably Sam putting on the ring. So, did Sam put the ring on in the movie? I don't think he did.
Nope.
So he doesn't put. I think he puts the necklace around his neck.
Yeah, he puts the necklace on, but he doesn't put the ring on. So they removed Sam putting on the ring, and I will say that reading this after, it's like I've said this whole time, it's been a long time since I read this series, and I had kind of forgotten that Sam put the ring on, and I was a little bit shocked by it. I was like, "Oh no, Sam, no!" And
but that's isn't that the influence of the movie, though? Because in the influence of the movie, you get the idea that Sauron knows the presence of it by someone putting it on. So if he had put it on in the movie, it would have kind of destroyed their whole thing with the ring.
They definitely up Sauron's awareness of the ring in the movie. Although in the book, when he puts it on, he felt the presence of some, like a searching eye or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't invent that. I think that they just made it so visible with the burning eye, right? That that it was too direct to the audience. I think, like you said, it would have caused problems for the movie. Whereas in the book, you just get the general sense that, like, Sauron is sort of aware of the ring more, and so he's searching, but he's already searching. So it's I don't know. What do you think, Dane? You look like you're rolling it around.
Yeah. So the movie is implying essentially that Sauron can now sense the ring a hell of a lot more than maybe he used to in the past, because Bilbo was using it at his party and multiple times before to hide from the Sackville Baggins is no big deal.
Best use of the ring ever.
But then there's a whole bunch of scenes like when Frodo, at least in the film, right? Frodo accidentally puts on the ring in Bree, and then you see a shot of all these, all the ring wraiths essentially horseback riding one way, rearing up, and then going somewhere else. Like, oh, I sensed it. We got to go that way, kind of thing. And so I think you're at a point where if you filmed Sam put on the ring when the orcs are about, you would kind of be expecting the Witch King on his fell beast, essentially to pull rein and fly back home to Minas Morgul or nearby, because they would be sensing, oh wait, that's where it is.
Mm-hmm. Whereas in the books, it's definitely a much more subtle awareness, right? So for example, the Wraith stops on the bridge at Minas Morgul and can sense that something is there. So, someone is on the stairs, is essentially, and sent orders to was it Shadrach or the other one? One of the two of them was the one from Minas Morgul. The other was the tower, the watchtower, right? Gorbag or whatever his name is, right? And it's like, hey, go search the stair.
Keep an eye on
spies.
this.
We have spies on the stair. Excuse me. So I think that there's definitely less awareness, but still there. But anyway, I enjoyed Sam having the ring. I think that him putting the ring on gave some interesting insights. He was allowed to be close enough to the orcs to literally listen to their conversations. And that's the big reveal, right? So if he hadn't put the ring on, then he would have never gotten the reveal. Which is like Dane said, the man, like, how crushing
climax, right?
Right? Like, yeah, how crushing is that? You worked yourself up into an emotional thing. You went through all the stages of grief. You have, given up on your friend and are now like, what must be done, and then you're just setting out and walking away, and you hear someone casually just like, nah, he's totally alive. Like, man, just wrecking, right?
Mm-hmm. So going back to when he puts on the ring, the description Tolkien gives is just that they actually did, I thought, a pretty good job depicting it in the movies. I thought, like, the world changed in a single moment of time. It was filled with an hour of thought, which that's a great line. And at once he was aware that hearing was sharpened while sight was dimmed, but otherwise than in Shelob's lair. All things about him now were not dark, but vague, while he himself was there in a gray, hazy world alone, like a small, black, solid rock, and the ring weighing down his left hand was like an orb of hot gold. He did not feel invisible at all, but horribly and uniquely visible, and he knew that somewhere an eye was searching for him. What... Again, how many times have we said it? The prose, the description, the use of language is not put to waste at all by Tolkien, one of the most intentional writers of our day.
Matt's comment here. So there's two circumstances when Frodo gets exposed to Sauron when wearing the ring. So the first is sort of the location, right? And the second is attempting to claim the ring, is what he says here.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm on Hen and then in Mount Doom.
Yeah. Yep, I would agree with that. So there we go. We've gotten to the end of the end of the Two Towers. I've enjoyed this book a lot. I still kind of wonder about the decision to cut the perspectives in completely two halves.
Well, here's a question for you, Pips, because you brought it up a couple of times. You think that maybe the Frodo Sam story should have come first?
Yep. In
the Two Towers. Keep in mind here, if you do that, you can't end on Frodo was alive but taken by the enemy.
And so I think that's actually why I just sort of rephrased it, saying that I'm really more just questioning the decision to split the points of view completely. I think talking to Nerdporial, he was saying that, you know, he wanted to read these sort of like chapter by chapter throughout the book instead of reading just consecutively, right? So like read, you know, chapter 1 from book 3 and then chapter 1 from book 4, and
So you're cutting back and forth, much more like how the film does it, right?
Yeah, and also I think he referenced the way that you know, some of George R. R. Martin's books, his last 2 books, were kind of contemporary, similar to the way some people argue that you can maybe read Winter's Heart and Crossroads of Twilight, but I really like the idea that most of Sam and Frodo's story, I think, should be read before you know about what's happening to Gandalf. I also like the idea that you should not know about the army marching out of Minas Morgul and the, you know, sort of fake out death, if you will, of Frodo. So I kind of think that maybe if I was gonna reread this and do a non-standard chapter order, and I think I'll wonder what you guys say about this. I think I might read up to the crossroads. So I might read essentially up to the journey to the crossroads, or maybe up to the Forbidden Pool, right? So I'd read the first half of book 4, where now like Frodo's quest is a little bit in doubt. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with him. And then go over, read all of book 3, and then come back to Frodo's story. I think that's how I might split it. So I wouldn't be going chapter by chapter, but I think
you already know what happens now, Pips.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter.
When you get a nephew to read it for the first time.
There you go. I'll you know, I need to have a bunch of kids so I can do some experiments. I'll have one of them read the series, you know, the way
as
it was
the author
published.
intended.
And then I'll have well, the author intended it all to be one book, so the publisher already sort of messed with his intent. Then I'll have another one who will read sort of the Pips edit. You know, I'll take a book, I'll move the chapters around, I'll present it. They won't even know the difference.
Could you fucking imagine the Pips edit being in a bookstore one day?
I seem to think that I was just trying to look for it. You can read it in a chapter order that's chronological, and they actually break it down, I think, in either the Two Towers movie appendices or the Return of the King appendices. I can't remember which. Yeah. But you can find it in the middle of all that, and then find your chapter order.
Yeah,
for chronological reading.
I think that the order that I just laid out is probably about chronological order, right? But I think that the difference would be that I'm putting a lot of, you know, Frodo going through the Dead Marshes and all that kind of stuff. All that takes a lot of time. And during that amount of time, I think is when everything is happening in Rohan, right? And then, so you knock through that, and then you go back, you look over here, you get the realization that Gandalf is alive after having Frodo's contemplation of Gandalf's death and how much Mithrandir wouldn't have wanted you to go this way, which is why I think that split at the end of the Forbidden Pool would be such a great spot, because he's contemplating the loss of Gandalf. And then you jump back, you read through book 3, and then once you get to the rising action on that front, it spills right over into the stairs, Shelob's lair, and the choices of Samwise. I think that would just be, I don't know. I think it'd be great. But yeah, Pips edit coming to stores and bookshelves near you,
or a blog post,
or a blog post. All right, guys. Any saved rounds? Closing thoughts for the Two Towers?
I think this book ends at a much stronger cliffhanger part than the film did. I know why the film basically had to cut sooner and put all of Shelob into the third book. Like they were running, like they just had too much to do. Obviously, when you have to take a 10-minute sojourn with Faramir to Osgiliath, certain other creative decisions need to spill out of that. But I'd say, Tolkien knew what he was doing, making this kind of a bookend.
Yeah, so you definitely have to end the book here. Like that, you're 100% right. That like that ending and the specific line, right? The specific line is just such a great, like, tune in next time for right? Like Frodo is alive but taken by the enemy. Here ends the second part of the history of the War of the Ring. And you're just like, damn it!
I'm gonna have to read the third part.
Yeah.
And thankfully, back in the 50s, 6 months later, you had Return of the King. You didn't have to wait that long. Hear that, George Martin?
What? You know what? No. He doesn't even deserve to be in the same conversation.
No, he doesn't.
Come on, is Jon Snow really dead?
I said
this guy doesn't give a shit.
The show brought him back pretty quick, but like, for fuck's sake, if George R. R. Martin really wanted to be a dick about it, he would just like, all right, here's book 6, boom, and there's no Jon Snow. Yeah, he got stabbed, he's dead. Why do you think this book took so long? I wrote it first bringing him back, but now everyone knows, like, was expecting that. So no, screw it. That's what he's gonna do.
I said this in a Discord post recently, and Nerdporial pointed out that this is apparently my consistent and continued position on this author, which is Patrick Rothfuss, who I will camp together with George R. R. Martin here. And I said that I wouldn't piss on Patrick Rothfuss if he was on fire and was screaming that the book was finished and he was on his way to the editor.
That's mean.
Yeah. All right. There you go, Vic.
Yeah.
that is the best part. There you go, Jon Snow.
Giggity.
Wait, when did that happen?
I don't know. I don't think I have anything else to say on this. I think that I really enjoyed the read. I'm really looking forward to the Return of the King, and we'll have to do the showing on the Discord for the extended edition of Two Towers. I think we decided we're going to do it all in one run through because it's cut so differently that it didn't make sense to do half and half, right? Yeah. We're just going to do the entire thing probably next weekend. So tune into the Discord and look for us to do that. It'll be, HD streamed for everybody. We'll do a little watch party. I don't know if we'll even do a stream afterwards to talk about it. If we do, it'll probably be just a post-show conversation about changes and things that we liked and didn't like and stuff like that. So again, let us know in the comments, either here or in the Discord, if you would be interested in us giving some commentary afterwards, or if you just want to do the live watch on the Discord. But yeah, Dane, you got any announcements for your upcoming show?
Yeah, so Sneed and Pixcalcus and I were going to get going. I think it's a week Monday, so towards the end of the month. But we're going to be diving into the prologue and the first 6 chapters of The Eye of the World. And the focus is on all the little things you might miss on a first read, second read, third read. Because I think I found 2 of the guys on our Discord who, like me, like the lore backwards, forwards, and have read the series multiple times. So the whole idea there is, like, if you've read the series once and you want to just know how much depth there is to the opening salve of the Wheel of Time, tune it in. If you haven't finished the series, don't watch, because we're going to spoil everything.
I am looking forward to you guys explaining how people who don't understand the end of The Eye of the World and say that it was confusing and needed to be changed for the TV show, I'm looking forward to you guys explaining how catastrophically dumb those people are. like the pure absence of brain cells that is necessary to come to that conclusion.
Are you saying they could run for president?
I'm saying
at this
that,
point they're obliged to run for president.
Yeah. Oh, terrible. Nathan, what about you, sir? Are you still working on your project, or I know you got some stuff going on, kind of real life things. So just
Yeah, real life things are kind of taking hold. Hopefully I'll be able to get back to that sometime soon. In the meantime, we've got the Return of the King coming up on this channel next Sunday. I will be on Nerdporial's channel as we reach our way to the end of The Dragon Reborn, although we're not finishing the book.
getting close.
I think we're getting close, and really looking forward to seeing Brian's growth in that series and watching him react to it, because it's been a lot of fun to read it again. It's been a lot of fun to watch him read it for the first time and have discussions about it. So
sure.
Tune into the Nerdporial life form then. And yeah, other than that, I'm good.
Sweet. Well, hey, appreciate you guys' time. A little bit of a shorter stream today because it's just a little bit of a shorter section. But again, if you're wondering, Alex had some stuff come up. He's fine. As much he might be sleeping off a hangover from last night. Dane thinks he's a lightweight. Is basically where we're at on this. But yeah, we really appreciate you guys coming out, and to you two, thanks again for being on and having a good discussion. I can't say how much your guys' insight and the conversations we have, I think, really increases my personal enjoyment in reading these books. Hopefully anyone in the chat who's reading along with us, you also like some of our conversations, my terrible takes about rearranging the chapters that Tolkien wrote. It's all in good fun, and just really loving the ride here. Man, I wish that there were writers today who were writing stuff of this quality. I guess that's all I'll really say. And hey, maybe that's a good way to end it. If you know somebody who you think deserves to be in the same conversation as talking about Tolkien, please leave a comment with recommendations in the comments to this video. Like, subscribe, all that other stuff. Check out Amanda Manethrin's channel. He's got some stuff up there, and in the future he's going to be doing his Eye of the World script when he's able to get back to it. And otherwise, thanks again for being here. Walk in the light, and we will see you guys next time.
Ty Sharman, Manethrin.